Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your Money in the Bank 2014 preview and predictions.
What's going on, guys? John, aka VocalAggression here, joining Ashton for these preview and predictions. I cannot wait for Money in the Bank this year. This card looks stacked. Ashton, I think you would echo my sentiments.
Let me put it this way. It's a two-match card, but those two matches are absolutely stacked, yes.
Absolutely. I think you summed it up perfectly. With that said, man, what match do you want to discuss first, or what do you want to say about the pay-per-view before we really get into the thick of things?
I don't think we have an official announced pre-show match, do we?
No, we don't. I think Daniel Bryan is going to dominate the pre-show with his appearance and doing a Q&A. I guess that's fan-based because fans are submitting questions for him to answer.
Okay, then I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's talk about the absolutely least relevant match on this card that isn't a Divas match. Big E versus Rusev, and we'll open with that.
You know, I credit the writers' attempts to give this match more of a story than just two behemoths colliding. But really, that was enough for me to get interested. I feel like
Yeah.
all this other stuff with patriotism and this and that, it's kind of lost on me. But then again, Ashton, I think people would have to know us more personally to know like why that is. Because I really just don't care for these dressings personally. That said, I enjoyed the last match these two had. I gave credit to Rusev for taking the spot, the spear for the ropes. I always give Big E credit for actually doing it. And I feel like if these guys get a little bit more time, make Big E seem like a little bit more of a threat to Rusev, then Rusev will look all the better for it. Because it's one thing to be imposing and seemingly unstoppable, but resilience is always going to make you come out that much stronger. So let's hope that they really have Big E give Rusev a fight so Rusev can show just how good he really is defensively.
Yeah. I mean, it's always good when you can show people that your new big monster heel is not only good at beating people quickly, but if he can't beat people quickly, that he can actually take almost as much as he can dish out.
Exactly, Ash, and that was one of the things that I felt like was a huge positive in Mark Henry's world title reign.
Yep.
Because, yeah, a lot of the time he would mow down opponents, but a match that instantly comes to my mind is Hell in a Cell match against Randy Orton. At one point, Orton did hit the RKO, which they were really playing up at Night of Champions a month prior, and they thought, oh, well, if he hits it, it's over. Well, guess what? Henry kicked out. And then when Orton tried to go to the well with the punt, Henry caught him with the world's strongest slam, and he came back, to ultimately win it.
Yep.
I would like a moment like that for Rusev. Maybe not delivered by Big E. I think maybe it would be more impressive if it was a allegedly bigger guy. Like, say, hypothetically, if that Cena match and Cena feud altogether does come to fruition, maybe at one point Rusev kicks out of an AA or something. Just really show the grit that he possesses. That's what I'm really liking to see from Rusev at this stage of the game.
Yep. So, I mean, we've kind of already said about what there is to say in this match, other than pointing out the fact, which we seem to do every single time we talk about this feud on a TwitWow, pointing out the fact that a gimmick like Rusev's can still work, and now they're really playing up the patriotism with Big E, which again, to me, is surprising that it still works. But other than that, we've really touched on just about everything that there is to touch on in this match.
Yeah, I mean, Big E is still kind of in stagnation in my mind, despite the fact that he has been given more mic time and he is kind of the representative of the people, which I think is nice. Anytime a guy as charismatic as Big E gets a microphone, I enjoy it. His promo before last that he cut on SmackDown was the promo he did on Raw, left you in hysterics, so that was fantastic. And so yeah, I mean that's one positive to come out of this, but he's still not on an upward trajectory. I say Rusev wins decisively by submission.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. No doubt about it.
All right, let's move on to the next contest.
Well, you know what? Since it's weighing heavy on my mind, we might as well just get right into the Divas match, but not the important one. We're going to talk about Summer Rae versus Layla, special guest referee being Fandango. To me, this is another match where there isn't really that much discussion to be had, and the winner is pretty obvious.
Yeah, I mean Summer is the younger diva in this match here. She's still, she's far
Every
newer.
diva is the younger diva when they're in a match with Layla. She's the oldest diva
Right.
on the roster, not named McMahon.
Really?
Yeah, she's like
That
36 or 37, dude.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
either way, I also meant in the context of just experience. Summer Rae is a lot newer to audiences than Layla. Layla has had a very established career. So I just think it's logical that Summer goes over. The added element of Fandango as a referee, you and I figured this wrinkle would come into play eventually. Honestly, I thought we'd wait a little bit longer than this, but honestly, I'm glad we're doing it now. Let's get it out of the way so we get Summer back to bigger pursuits. Namely, I liked what one person had to say about it being a heel Divas Championship contender. So, I want us to really get back to that if at all possible. I say Summer goes over in what should be an entertaining match, but only because of the hijinks that'll probably ensue between Fandango and the two women that he's standing in between.
Right. To me, this would be the perfect pre-show match.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
you talk about hijinks, that's what pre-show matches are all about, is you're not going to necessarily get a technical clinic or anything, but you can still throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at the viewers to keep them tuned in so that when the pay-per-view comes on, they really want to see what's going on.
Precisely. I really do feel like this match could have served that purpose, but Daniel Bryan is monopolizing that time, giving us an update and I guess addressing the future WWE World Heavyweight Champion that will emerge from the ladder match, presumably as the main event of the show. So, this match should be good for what it is, but I'm just really looking for mainly Summer. I don't know where Layla really goes from here, but mainly Summer to really break out and do bigger things after this is all behind her.
Yeah. I mean, my only problem with the logic that you're throwing at me here is that we don't know if Summer's actually going to do anything after this. So to me, if they can keep her on TV, as long as she's on TV, even if it is just feuding with Layla over Fandango, TV time is better than no TV time. And we aren't guaranteed that Summer's going to do jack squat after she wins this match.
That's true. I mean, giving still the perceived notions of the women's division, despite the progress that it's made mainly over in NXT and NXT live events, that I think is starting to trickle into the main roster with Paige being the Divas champion. There's still a perception of, well, they're not really important. Let's just give them 5 minutes here, maybe something there, but never anything worthwhile. And Summer, I think, would certainly fit that category. So we should enjoy her while we have her, absolutely, because we don't know what happens next. I do agree with you. I'm just hoping that bigger things come for her after this feud, but it's no guarantee that it will.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. There's no guarantee. As much as I'd like to see more things happen for her, I love the idea of her versus Paige because they always had good matches on NXT. So if they decide that they actually do want to do something with Summer, that would be great to put her in a feud with Paige. But we've also got to take into account that at least if we go by my fantasy booking, which I think really does make the most sense, Naomi is going to have Paige tied up for the next 2.5 months.
Right. So yeah.
I don't know. I would almost prefer Layla versus Summer Rae to last just as long as Naomi versus Paige, just so that it keeps Summer Rae fresh, so that when Naomi does win the Divas title from Paige, and Naomi's going to be babyface the whole time, Summer can become the foil.
Well, I think for that to happen, two things need to occur. One, I would remove Fandango from the equation to make that more probable because he's making the decision on who goes over this match. So that to me seems like a huge sign that a resolution is coming here. And two, Layla, I think, would have to go over because the babyface would have to chase the object of their ire, and I really just don't see that here. I do see some
right, and then that's the thing, though, dude. I'm kind of talking myself into thinking that maybe Layla is going to win here because Fandango as special guest referee, why would he even count to 3 if Summer Rae was the one doing the pin when he and Summer Rae are over and done and he broke up with her and they're just over with?
You make a great argument there. I don't know. I'm still convinced Summer is going over here. I mean, you certainly make good points, but then again, after the little meeting that Summer and Fandango had where they shared a kiss, right in front of Layla, they're probably going to play up that Fandango is more conflicted than perhaps he should be, and that'll lend to Summer getting the victory.
I'm going to also say Summer wins, but that's with great hesitation because I genuinely do think that, like, if I had to guess, I feel like if they would book this match 10 times, they would have a different winner all 10 times. Well, obviously you can't do that. They would have Summer win maybe 6 of them and Layla win 4. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Like, it's tough because of the X factor there being Fandango. But yeah, my official prediction, I'll say Summer Rae, but I just feel like I'm going to regret going against my gut instinct here, which is to say Layla. So, you know what? Up next, let's talk about the next least relevant match on this card. The only match remaining that doesn't have any championship implications. Ryback and Curtis Axel, aka Rybaxel, versus Stardust and Goldust, aka Gold Star.
I'm really happy that both of these teams, are colliding because it gives Rybaxel something to do. And as everybody knows, I freaking love Stardust, and we've praised Goldust until the cows have come home, so nothing even needs to be said there. That said, don't expect anything too spectacular. I'd honestly be surprised if this match even goes 10 minutes. I honestly wouldn't
Oh,
be
no,
surprised.
dude. I think this is going to be a clinic. I think this match is going to steal the show, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're gonna. Maybe clinic is a little bit too flamboyant of a word to use in this situation, but I think they're gonna surprise people. I think that this is going to be a solid like 10 to 15 minute match. These guys are going to get time. I genuinely think, because to me the tag team match that's going to get less time is the tag team title match, because I think that Rowan and Harper are going to basically squash the Usos.
Interesting. See, because to me, and the only way I could really buy into what you're saying is that if you're thinking logically in terms of Rybaxel, they did not know what to anticipate from Stardust. It was
Yeah.
a totally new transformation from Cody Rhodes, and
Yep.
he completely caught them off guard. Well, it's been so
Exactly.
much time removed since then that you'd figure, again, speaking purely kayfabe, that they would prepare, that they
Yep.
would really
They've been
study, that they
scouting
would
him, man. They've been watching him at all.
which I don't know how much scouting you can conceivably do, because he's only had the one match and everything else has just been backstage segments, or I think maybe he has had a few other matches, but they would be on main event and superstars, so I wouldn't have
Nah,
personally
man.
seen them.
They've been following him around live events, scouting.
Ah, okay. So yeah, it definitely makes sense that they would be more prepared. What I would love about this match getting more time, even though I'm not entirely convinced, is we can see what other little nuances
Cody, yeah,
Cody
Stardust.
has changed for Stardust, because I loved the changes he made, especially the new finisher, the cutter-esque maneuver off the top rope.
Yep.
So
And
yeah,
you know what? Not to mention, Rybaxel. I mean, not only have they been studying Stardust in the ring at live events, man, they have been surrounding their lives with stars. I mean, I don't know if you heard or not, but Ryback has been eating nothing but Starburst at every meal, and Curtis Axel loves Starburst too, but his favorite Beetle is Ringo Starr. They have been surrounding themselves with stars, man. They're
that
prepared for this.
Yeah, that's the most intense training I've ever heard, man. I mean, that's crazy. But you know what? I hope you're right, and it does get 10 to 15 minutes. I still somewhat believe it's not going to get that much time, as much as I would love it to, because again, I love both teams. Ultimately, though, I see Gold Star going over.
Oh, I agree, 100%. It doesn't matter how long the match is. At the end of the day, the new guys are going to beat the big guy and the medium guy. Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
So up next, you know what? Since we were just talking tag team title match, let's get right into that. Rowan and Harper versus the Usos. I think Rowan and Harper are going to win decisively.
Oh, how I would love for you to be right. Let me put it to you like this, guys. I want more than anything for the Wyatt family to not only win the titles, I would revel in what Ashton is saying here. If they just demolish them. But here's the thing, and I'm kind of showing a little bit of my hand for later. I really had it in my head that if one section of the Wyatt family, that being, Harper and Rowan, were going to win, then that would entail that Bray would also win and we'd have a clean sweep. If they're not going to win, I don't think Bray is going to win either, and vice versa. And honestly, I don't see Bray winning the championship, and you have no idea how much it kills me to say that.
Can I
Um,
ask you a question?
sure.
Why do you have it in your head that if they're going to win one title, they have to win all the titles?
Because to me, it would seem weird to not have a clean sweep given Bray's expectation of the situation. He even said, I expect you to win. Well, how can you impose that expectation on one without having it for yourself? And again, I go back to, I don't think Bray's winning the championship. So I think all the members are going to come up short, which again, really disappoints me. And the thing is, too, we got to understand that it was on the last Raw, I believe it was, or 2 weeks ago, that Harper and Rowan absolutely laid out the Usos, just destroyed them and celebrated with the championships. To me, personally, and I'm being dead serious about this, the way they've booked the Usos, and I don't know if you'd entirely disagree with this, because you and I have talked about how strong they look consistently. I think WWE is really trying to establish them as the team to beat. And personally, as much as I'd love that distinction to belong to the Wyatt family, at this time, I believe it belongs to the Ascension. So that's
What? The Ascension?
yeah, I think the Ascension is going to beat the Usos for the tag team titles.
Oh my
I've
God. Dude, they
become
haven't even debuted yet. You're
well,
jumping the shark.
well, dude, I think that the Usos are going to hold the titles. I think this is only their third month with the belts. I think we could double that.
Dude, they've had
maybe.
the titles. They've had the titles since Elimination Chamber.
Let's see, Elimination.
Or no, the Raw After Chamber. That was in February. This is their fourth,
March,
almost
April.
fifth month.
Well, then I see it going 6 to 8, and somewhere in there, the Ascension.
No
are gonna
way.
come, man.
Nope.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
Usos are retaining to me. Usos are retaining because I don't see the Wyatt family having that distinction. I would love them to. Don't get me wrong. I cannot stress enough the difference between what I want and what I think is going to happen. But the Usos are so OP. After getting destroyed on Raw, they're not going to drop those belts. No freaking way.
They didn't get destroyed on Raw. They got destroyed on not this week's, but the past week's SmackDown.
Well, destroyed there, but then remember it was on a Raw where they got destroyed, and the Wyatt family was celebrating with their championship gold. I don't know if it was this past Raw or it was 2 weeks ago at least. And
but I don't think it was this past Raw. And to me, you have to only go off of the most recent one, because if you're going off what goes 3 weeks ago, they always flip flop. One guy wins 1 week, the other guy wins the other week. You can't go off of that.
I just feel like the Usos are so dominant when it comes to championship time that they're going to win again here, because I really believe it's going to be establishing those guys.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to try and sway you, because it's always good when we disagree like this, because it always sparks an interesting discussion. But to me, as much as I would love to agree with what you think is going to happen with the Ascension, I am not going to buy into that stock right now. I think the Wyatt family wins. And you know what, dude? Maybe they build up Gold Star to be their first contenders. And you know what? I mean, if you really think about it, the Ascension on the main roster are going to be baby faces. Just like what happened to Bo Dallas. Everyone freaking hated him on NXT. He eventually started to get entertaining and people started turning a little bit. That's when he debuted on the main roster, and now look at him. He's a freaking baby face. That's the exact same thing that's going to happen to the Ascension. I think they're going to end up being not the next, but the following after the next tag team champions. And that's assuming they debut in time to do it. You never know. We could end up getting Gold Star as our next tag team champions after Rowan and Harper win. The Usos could win them back for all we know. We might not even get the Ascension until after this coming WrestleMania. You just can't go like predicting that kind of stuff, especially when there aren't even any rumors about it.
Gold Star is kind of the floating question mark for me because they're so new and the crowd does seem to be taking them. And the Ascension being babyface, that'll be wholly by the design of the audience. I don't think the writers would want them to come in as babyfaces. I think, like the crowds have done so many times, they'll force them to be babyfaces, which I honestly don't know how I feel about that. That said, I'm sticking by it. Just something's telling me the Usos are going to come away with it. And really, again, it's not just the Ascension. I don't want that to consume everything I said. Remember, I also said that I think it's going to be either all the gold for the Wyatt family or nothing at all. It's going to be all or nothing for them that night. I just don't see Bray winning his match, so I think that's going to definitely come
that's
back.
One more thing that you and I disagree on, because I think that there is... I mean, to me, it's not inconceivable that the Wyatt family could win and Bray Wyatt won't. It's not like I could see him continuing to chase the title, but I don't think he needs to win it in order for the family to win.
I don't know, man. I'm glad you're picking the Wyatt family because, again, I want them to win so badly. I've been loving their work, and you and I both are just so tired of the Usos. Again, it's not a matter of personal taste. I just think with the way that they're booked, to use a JBL phrase, when the lights are on bright, it's not going to go out. Not yet. I'd give it another 2 to 3 months. So
no way. Their reactions are starting to die down too quickly. The WWE needs to pull the trigger. So, very differing views on this. I'm calling the Wyatt family to win. You're calling the Usos to win. I believe that's our first major disagreement of the night.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's move to something that I think we're going to be relatively unanimous on. Diva's title match, Naomi versus Paige. I believe we both agree that Paige is winning this.
Yeah, the only thing we might disagree on is the means with which she's going to win, because I really sense Cameron interference leading to a DQ here.
Yeah, same here.
Okay,
We don't
okay.
disagree on that at all. That was my idea in the first place because I think it's going to lead to Naomi versus Cameron at the next pay-per-view.
Right. So, yeah, you know what? It's a shame that this feud has to be done and over with for Naomi to just really go on her own, but it's a necessary evil because I would just love for Paige and Naomi to have their clinic right now, but then again, I have to think if they're going to do it again at SummerSlam, which you theorize, it could really be a barn burner.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I feel like
I could see them getting their 10 minutes at least.
I would hope so. I really do, because I think you really are looking at two of the best women on the main roster right now in Naomi and Paige. I'd put Emma in there, but we haven't seen her on TV in quite some time. She's been doing those Instagram things with Paige. So yeah, I think that distinction belongs to Paige and Naomi. They'll give us a small taste of what they're capable of at Money in the Bank, but I think they're saving the whole main course for SummerSlam. So Paige to retain by DQ.
Absolutely. And the other option is maybe Naomi will win by DQ, thus Paige keeps the title.
That's true too. Maybe Cameron won't be able to keep her emotions in check, attacks Paige, and then Naomi, rightfully so, gets very upset about it, with Cameron, and then Cameron, being the horrible person that she is just like, girl, bye, and then she kicks the leg out from under Naomi and takes her out.
Or maybe just Cameron goes straight after Naomi out of jealousy.
Maybe, absolutely.
That's why I was saying, like, that could cause Naomi to win by DQ, which then she wouldn't get the title, but then she would want to take Cameron out of the picture before going back after the title.
Exactly.
So, just a couple of interesting thoughts there. All right, dude, we have gotten to our two big matches. We have Money in the Bank briefcase ladder match and the WWE World Heavyweight Championship ladder match. Let's talk about the briefcase first. Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, RVD, Kofi Kingston, Bad News Barrett, Jack Swagger, and Dolph Ziggler. Most likely Bad News Barrett is out.
Which is extremely unfortunate because to me, he was one of the favorites going into this thing, and I know you as well thought the same thing. To me, see, this is where it gets really hard. You and I may have had a very heated disagreement with Uso's Wyatt family, but to me, these two matches are the toughest to predict.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I was confident in all my other predictions. I was confident in all my other predictions, though. Granted, they could very easily be wrong, and I accept that. This, though, I can't even say that there's confidence going behind anything that I say here. So I'll just begin by saying, I don't think Dolph's going to win. I think Dolph's stock, as much as you and I love him, if we're being realistic, he doesn't have as high a stock as he did last year heading into this event. Not even close.
Well, he didn't win last year either, so that doesn't really even say anything.
Well, I mean, he didn't win last year either, but I think he was doing bigger things. He was more prominent last year, even though he's still ridiculously
How
over with the
high
crowd.
was his stock when he did win Money in the Bank, John? It wasn't really that high, was it?
Well, no, it wasn't. But, to me, after the cash in and everything and how it ended, even though it was all friggin' Swagger stall kicking him in the head, I just don't think he's ever been able to find his footing since then. So I don't see him winning. I really don't see Kofi Kingston winning. I think even any serious contemplation of that, in my opinion, is laughable. You could say the same thing for Swagger. So to me, it comes down to Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, potentially Bad News Barrett if by some shocker he makes it, or whoever replaces him. And if whoever replaces him, you and I scoff at, then it really does come down to the former brothers turned enemies, Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose.
You also skipped RVD, but that's understandable because he's also irrelevant in this.
Yeah, exactly. He's the veteran to do the fancy-looking spots and to make everybody else look good in the finish.
This is his Shelton Benjamin match.
Exactly. He is filling that Shelton Benjamin role. So, going through that kind of process, and I already told this to you already, and I've stuck by it both, on here and Puitov, I think this is Dean Ambrose's match to win. But I want to elaborate real quick. I do think, one, it'll be because, they want to play up it was Seth Rollins' own undoing. Dean Ambrose was as far away from the match as possible, but then Seth Rollins brought him into it. And two, here's the thing. If Dean Ambrose does win the briefcase, I wholeheartedly expect him and Seth Rollins to feud over it, and we may even see a transfer in that case. Either that or Dean Ambrose cashes in, presumably on a heel champion who will say, for hypothetical purposes, is Randy Orton. Looks like he's closing in, but then Rollins runs in, causing a DQ, which means Ambrose doesn't get the championship. One or the other. I don't see Ambrose turning the briefcase into a world title, as much as it pains me to say that, because he's just so freaking good right now. But I do see him winning this ladder match.
It's so weird when you look at this ladder match, because to me, I don't think anybody in this match, and that even includes Bad News Barrett, is WWE World Heavyweight Championship material right now. I personally would love to see Ambrose get it, but to me that feels like a reach. It feels like it would be great personally for me, but he's not ready for that spot yet from a booking perspective, from an actually like being credible enough to hold that title perspective. And the same goes for everybody in this match. I mean, we already said Kofi, RVD, Jack Swagger, they're irrelevant, completely irrelevant in this match. They're not going to win. I'm surprised Swagger isn't like suspended for the fact that he freaking injured Bad News Barrett when he did. But to me, it comes down to 5 possibilities. And I know I'm being so precise here. It comes down to 5 possibilities. Rollins is a definite possibility. Personally, I think Rollins is the favorite to win this. Ambrose is, again, I don't want to pick Ambrose because to me that would be like the Ambrose mark just being a mark and picking his favorite guy. And I really don't want to get my hopes up for that.
Right.
Dolph Ziggler, to me, honestly, if I didn't feel like Seth Rollins was the favorite to win this match, Ziggler would be my pick. Because I think that the plan going into this match was, and this is option 4, Bad News Barrett to win the match. But if Bad News Barrett no-shows, if he's hurt and he can't make this match, I think Ziggler is the perfect foil to win the briefcase, and then a month or 2 down the line, feud with Barrett over the briefcase and lose it to him. They could do briefcase versus title, Intercontinental Championship.
I could see that.
And then my fifth option is whoever replaces Barrett, which that's probably my least likely option because the only people that I can think of are The Miz and Bo Dallas, and I don't think either one of those guys would win the briefcase if they would be in that spot. But honestly, I think it's just going to end up being a 6-man match. I think it's just going to be Rollins, Ambrose, RVD, Kingston, Swagger, and Ziggler. Bad News Barrett won't be able to make it, and at that point, it comes down to 3. It comes down to Rollins, Ambrose, and Ziggler. My pick is between Rollins and Ziggler because I already said I can't pick Ambrose because of the mark thing and, the whole don't want to get my hopes up thing. I think that Ambrose makes the most sense. He's the most over. He would probably do the most with the briefcase. He has the most versatility because, if they want to keep him face and just have him be a top baby face with the briefcase and cash in on a heel champion, that would make sense. But he's so freaking good that they could just use the briefcase to turn him heel like they did with Punk, like they did with, I want to say, Edge. It's a great tool for turning people heel. And Ambrose is an amazing heel, so that could work out too. But to me, it comes down to Rollins and Ziggler. And the thing is, I picked Seth Rollins on Puitoff to win this because when I do my Puitoff picks, I let absolutely no emotions come into it. I go all picking by the brain. Whatever the WWE has been hinting at the most, whatever the WWE has been really building up and playing up to the crowd the most. So in this case, I went with Rollins because Triple H has been screaming from the mountaintops. Seth Rollins is going to win the briefcase, and Orton is going to win the championship. And I don't necessarily buy into the Orton thing, but because really Triple H doesn't really seem to buy into it either. He's only ever said it once, but he's been shouting from the rooftops about Rollins winning the briefcase. So you know what? As much as I want to say Dolph Ziggler, I went with Rollins on my Puitoff picks. So you know what I'm going to do? Just to be that guy, I'm going to say Ziggler here tonight.
You know what? That's fair enough to me. The interesting thing, and this is just a final note I want to discuss very quickly, about Money in the Bank ladder matches, is that typically, I'm not saying in every case, but just most cases that I've seen, it never really goes to the guy riding the most momentum. The most recent case being last year.
Sandow.
Sandow for one, and Orton kind of being the other, because Bryan was riding such a huge wave of momentum, taking people out, saying,
Bryan wasn't even in the briefcase match, though, was he?
Yeah, he was.
Was he?
Yeah, he was. And he was riding a huge wave of momentum, dude. He told Kane, listen, I want to be WWE champion. And then he gets in the Money in the Bank ladder match. He's taking people out left and right. He's winning matches. I think that was around the same time.
Oh, yeah, I guess he was.
Street Fight match. Yeah, with Randy Orton. So he was riding an incredible wave of momentum. But I find historically, again, in most cases, that WWE goes with the more, not necessarily obscure picks, but the more under the radar. Not necessarily to the point of irrelevance, but just to the point where they're good enough, but just staying low enough out of everybody's line of sight.
Yeah, and see, you know what? That makes me even more confident in picking Ziggler because they've been building him up, but they haven't been shoving it in your face.
And so, you know what? Even though I'm going to stick with Ambrose, one, because I do believe he's the best logical choice, and two, I'm not going to lie, I just want it so bad to hear your mark out on live reactions. I've been licking my chops for something like that to happen forever.
Well, dude, but that's
I,
the thing, though. You even just said they never go with the guy that's had the most momentum. They never go with the guy who makes the most sense. They never go with the guy that everyone's expecting. And the guys that everyone's expecting to win are Rollins and Ambrose. To me, that only leaves Ziggler.
But I also said, again, I made sure to qualify my statement because I knew you'd come back at this. I said in most cases. I also think there have been cases where the guy with the most momentum won. I think the inaugural Money in the Bank, if I remember, Edge, I think had a lot of momentum going into that match because he was, the Rated R superstar. He was so disgruntled about never getting a world title opportunity. You figured that it would culminate in this fashion, him winning something that would allow him a championship opportunity whenever he wants. It just seems so ideal for him. So there
So
have been cases.
basically, they don't do it with guys that have the most momentum unless John decides.
You could say that, but I was just making sure to qualify my statement because, again, I could see somebody presenting the argument saying, hey, well, what about Edge? What about, this guy, that
Isn't
guy?
that kind of like a self-defeating argument, though? You say this rule exists, but not all the time, so it's not really a rule in the first place?
I'm just looking at it from what's happened the majority of the time, kind of like the Royal Rumble. Majority of the time, people would go on from winning the Royal Rumble and then winning the championship, but then there have been those cases where, well, look at that, they lost. But I'm looking at the majority pattern, especially one that is certainly more recent. But to me, I also pick Ambrose because I think his story with Rollins, I just see the Money in the Bank briefcase being a part of it. And really, it's just more of I don't want to use the word prop, but that's the best word coming to mind at the moment, more of a prop for their feud. I think their feud actually envelops the whole of this match. But that said, I could very easily see the logic and everything else behind Ziggler winning the briefcase. I mean,
Yep.
this match is so tough to call. I don't even.
And dude, you know
Like I
what's
said,
really crazy?
what's that?
No matter who wins, we are going to mark the F out.
Pretty much,
Because
yeah.
they're not going to give the briefcase to RVD. He's gone in a month or two. They're
Right.
not going to give the briefcase to Kofi. He's never going to do anything above the upper mid card. They're not going to give the briefcase to Swagger. He's dangerous in the ring, and he's probably not going to ever get a world title ever again in his life. That comes down to a potential Bad News Barrett if he's around, which we would mark out for, which is because, he was our first choice. If he's in the match, I think he's winning.
I would agree with that. Let me just say right here and now, if he somehow manages to bounce back from this, I could see him doing it because really we talk about, again, going back to this whole debacle of momentum versus this versus that. But the thing is, I think everything is just clicked with Barrett. But at the same time, he is under the radar enough because I guarantee you, dude, so many people are probably writing him off because he's the Intercontinental Champion. So I think he meets both conditions in a really weird way. So yeah, I would totally switch my pick, at least with you on live reactions, if he was able to make it.
Right. But so it comes down to Barrett, who, like you said, we're both picking him if he's in the match. But if not, it comes down to frickin' Rollins, Ambrose, and Ziggler. No matter what, we win.
Definitely. No argument there.
No matter what, we're freaking out.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, my official pick is Dolph Ziggler. Although I don't know if I'm going to change my Facebook pick, my Puitoff pick, because I like the idea of being able to pick two people and maybe getting called out for it, but just kind of dealing.
Right.
Your official pick is Ambrose, am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Let's move on to the big one. And, we build it up like it's this big thing, but I think you and I are going to agree on who wins, and I don't think there's even going to be that much discussion to be had. WWE World Heavyweight Championship ladder match. John Cena, Sheamus, Randy Orton, Bray Wyatt, Cesaro, and Alberto Del Rio. Oh, and Roman Reigns and Kane, those two guys too.
Okay, where to begin with this match? We know Kane's not winning. In fact, the bigger story with Kane is he there to protect Orton, or
The
is
three
he there?
the three guys I think we can safely write off are Kane, Del Rio, and Sheamus.
Yes. Yeah. So, again, that just leaves Bray Wyatt, Cesaro, Cena,
Reigns, Cena,
yeah,
and
right, and
Orton.
Orton. Okay. As much as I would honestly pop, even though I know a lot of people are sick of this guy, already. Well, at least a good sect of the internet is. I would pop if Orton won because I feel like he's due for it because he never got his formal rematch, and technically he's still not even getting it here. But I don't see him winning because, as I was going to say earlier before we narrowed our picks, I think the story is going to be, yeah, Kane is initially there to protect Orton, but he will go into business for himself, and that selfishness is going to undo all of Orton's progress, and it's just going to make him lose this match. Let's see, Cesaro, as much as I love him and as much as I would pop so huge for him winning, it's not happening. I know Paul Heyman invoked the same line, Cesaro winning is not a prediction, it's a spoiler. And to be honest, Ashton, that line almost won me over before we got here. If that was the last thing that we heard before doing this, I probably would pick Cesaro in all honesty.
Wasn't the last thing that we heard before WrestleMania.
That, exactly, yeah. So...
No, John, I'm saying it.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm saying that. It's tough. Again, like I said, this pay-per-view is so unpredictable, so anything I say, it may be on shaky ground, but it's the best ground I've got at this point. I even said on Twitwhile that I didn't even think I'd have all of my things together by the time we got here, and lo and behold, I was right. So, it's hard. But at the same time, I'm writing Cesaro off because then we have Reigns, who is so overpowered and doing so well. But then again, I feel like for that exact reason, if we were going back to Money in the Bank logic earlier, I think the Authority is going to screw Reigns. And hell, if Rollins gets gypped earlier in the night, how much do you want to bet that he may even do a run-in and prevent Reigns from winning the championship? I just don't see him winning it, especially because this go-home SmackDown, the last show before Money in the Bank, actually saw Reigns celebrating with the championships. To me, that's like a neon blazing sign. Yeah, he's not winning. So to me, it comes down to, how ironic,
Wyatt Cena.
Oh,
I thought Orton was still in it, but you did cancel him out earlier. That's right, because of Kane. Yeah.
Oh, Bray. I gotta, I can't go back on what I said earlier. I think, personally, let me just say this so I get this off my conscience. Bray deserves this, I think, more than anybody in this match. And yes, that does include Cesaro, despite the fact that I love him the most. I think Bray's work has been exceptional. I think he is the best heel in the company. I've said this over and over and over. He deserves this championship more than anybody in this match. I just don't think he's winning because of what I said earlier, so I won't go into that again. Which leaves, for the 15th time, that I believe John Cena is winning this match. And not only because of the deduction that I used with everybody else, but because a SummerSlam poster was leaked and it featured John Cena and Lesnar. Now, for that same reason, they could go against it, but I don't think WWE will. I think they're really sold on doing Cena-Lesnar because of Bryan's whole ordeal. They want a big SummerSlam main event because this is a big pay-per-view, and Cena-Lesnar for the gold, I mean, a marquee doesn't shine any brighter than that, at least in their eyes, so I'm going with Cena, and it friggin' sucks.
Yep, Cena wins, LOL.
That's it. I mean, can I ask you at least one thing, Ashton?
Yep.
Just to entertain it, and I know it's absurd. If we could put Cena off into the other universe, who do you think is most deserving to win this? Like, who would you
Bray
have
Wyatt,
win?
absolutely.
So you agree with okay then. So we're both in agreement on that. Yeah, because I just feel like he's been on another freaking level right now, and I'll be honest, I'm not happy about this. In fact, that's even understating it. But yeah, I just think we're getting ready to look at John Cena's 15th championship reign. I would love if, as his fingertips were touching the gold, the lights go out and not necessarily a child, but they come back on and Bray's on the top of the ladder and knocks Cena off, and that's how he gets the championships. But I don't think Bray's ready to take the whole world in his hands.
Yeah, dude, the Wyatt family has been really out of the spotlight in recent weeks.
And you know what, though? But again, that's why I'm so friggin' conflicted, and I hate myself in this video. Because you saying that, I mean, you're confident that, the Wyatt family are going to win the tag titles, but of course you agree with me that Cena's winning the championship. So you're not subscribing to my all or nothing approach. You even said, like, it doesn't even make any sense to you. You said that during the tag title match. However, you saying they've been out of the spotlight, it just makes me believe, well, maybe this is the time they get thrust back into it. But I'm not convinced, and that's what makes this so hard.
See, dude, I feel like you're trying too hard to play psychologist. You're trying to, rather than trying to pick what makes the most sense going forward, you're trying to pick based on what the WWE has done in the past. They're trying to say, well, they haven't built these guys up, so what does the history say about people that have or haven't been built up going into this match in the past? Like, to me, I don't really care what's happened in the past. You can learn from it every now and then, but when it comes to who's built up and who isn't, it's random. the WWE generally doesn't decide until the last minute who's getting the frickin' briefcase. And when they do decide, they don't always pick the guy that has the most or least or in the middle of the road or whatever amount of momentum. It's random.
And I feel like the only thing that's really putting my mind at ease about Cena, ironically enough, again, is this SummerSlam main event that's been heavily rumored, and again, the poster.
And and that's another thing. If we want to play psychologist, well, then guess what? The WWE is going to change that now because, well, they might not change the match, but they're not going to put the title on Cena because now everybody knows that they're going to do Cena versus Lesnar at SummerSlam, and they want to put the title into a different, more interesting match. And by the way, on that SummerSlam poster, was the title even pictured?
No, it was not.
But we saw Cena and Lesnar, but there was no title involved. So why are you like, and I'm doing the same thing, but why are we immediately jumping to, oh, well, Cena's on the poster, therefore he has to be the champion? The champion's not always on the poster.
That is true.
You don't need a championship to be involved for Brock Lesnar versus John Cena. It wasn't last time.
No. Don't get me wrong. I completely agree with you on that front. I thought Extreme Rules was, phenomenal, and then there were no championship implications. Personally, as much as I do believe Brock should win the title this year, I'm still gung-ho on him, beating Bryan for it. I don't see a need to beat Cena. I think the story is better if he takes it off Bryan.
Right.
It's kind of my reasoning. But the thing is, and I don't mean this coldly, but Bryan's injured. We don't know how long he's going to be out, and I don't want him to rush
Well, that's the thing, though, dude. If Bryan shows up on the pre-show and says, I will be in Raw tomorrow night, and the doctors have cleared me, I'm ready to compete, let's go, you're immediately going to completely regret everything that you've said.
Potentially. Hate this.
Let's do this. Let's set up scenarios, because here's the thing. We can predict all we want, but at the end of the day, the most important thing when it comes to the WWE is being flexible. So let's come up with different scenarios. If Cena wins, where do you think the guys in this match that are still relevant go? So you know what? Rather than being that bland or generic about it, let's do this. John Cena, Roman Reigns, Bray Wyatt, Randy Orton, Kane. 5 guys that are actually relevant in this match. If Cena wins, where do you see him and the other 4 guys going after this match?
If Cena wins, I could see Bray Wyatt being his first challenger because of the extensive history they have. If Sheamus and Cesaro, I could see them having one more bout over the United States Championship because last scorecard.
I don't care about Sheamus and Cesaro. I'm not including them. I'm talking about the 5 guys that I said: Cena, Reigns, Wyatt, Kane, and Orton.
Okay, well, Wyatt and Cena, again, first title defense, I stand by that. Kane is
Reigns, Kane, and Orton.
Reigns, Kane, and Orton. See, Kane is kind of an anomaly to me because I do see him going into business for himself, and Orton's going to be upset by that. So part of me says, are Kane and Orton potentially going to feud because Kane was selfish, right towards the end? And I would have to say no. I think the more logical thing, because Reigns has been calling him out for weeks, would be Roman Reigns and Randy Orton to have a mini program leading up to SummerSlam, which I think you and I still agree on, despite all these events, is going to be Roman Reigns versus Triple H. Where that leaves Kane, I honestly do not know. I think he'll just continue, I guess.
I'll tell you where that leaves Kane. Bryan's going to be back in time for Battleground, and they're going to have a match.
Well, then there you go. If Bryan does make it back in time for Battleground, I would agree with that. I'd say they finished the business that they started. And personally, I could still see them doing what they originally wanted to do for the championship, maybe even making a Buried Alive match so that they finish Daniel Bryan for good, would be their logic. But Kane ultimately gets thwarted.
That would make a lot of sense, actually. Or even an ambulance match.
Right, considering, all the recent events and everything. So, yeah, I mean, there you go. There all the pieces really fit. This pay-per-view, why I love it so much, despite all the frustration I'm feeling, even
it's
trying
like
to
a reset.
Articulate. Yeah, it's a reset, and it's so unpredictable that I love that unpredictability and loathe it simply because of my lack of articulative abilities here. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be very interesting if it really does shake down, like I've said.
Okay, so that's what happens if Cena wins. What if Bray wins the title?
You want to go through? Yeah.
Well, where do all 5 of those guys go after that? Because, I mean, as much as we both love Sheamus, Cesaro, and whatever about Sheamus and Del Rio, they aren't. First of all, they're not going to win the title, and second of all, they're not going to be in the title picture, at least
Right.
until SummerSlam, if not later.
Right. Right.
So let's just talk about those other 5 guys. So yeah, say Wyatt wins. Do you see someone cashing in immediately or soon after, or do you see him holding the title for a while? And if you do, who do you see being his opponent at Battleground? Who do you see being his opponent at SummerSlam?
See, this is another difficult one because if Bray Wyatt wins the championship, which I would pop so freaking huge for, being realistic, I don't see his title reign lasting that long. To be honest, I would see him losing it in the first defense solely because I believe that first defense would be against John Cena.
See, and to me, I'm the exact opposite. I think that he would win the title, and then he would defend it successfully against Cena at Battleground, and then we would get Wyatt Bryan for the title at SummerSlam.
I would love that. Absolutely love that. I just don't see it because to me, SummerSlam comes down to 2 possibilities, which is why it really is okay that I pick Cena one way or the other. We're either going to get Cena Bryan 2 1 year later, or we're going to get Cena Lesnar.
Right, and Cena Lesnar doesn't need to have a title involved. That's my point.
And then that's true, but then again, we go back to Cena Bryan 2, which I think is also another heavy possibility considering if Bryan can make it back in time. That said, if Bray wins the championship, again, I'd love him to retain over Cena. You know what my fantasy booking was. Those two have an I Quit match, and Bray beats Cena in that match. But that's not going to happen, not in a million years. To me, I see Bray holding the championships, but then Cena finds his way because they just got off of a recent rivalry, and then Cena says, hey, I can't allow you to have all that power. I can't allow you to corrupt all these people. I've got to be the one to take the title off of you. And then, because of White Knight syndrome and the babyface always having to go over, I could see Cena, quote-unquote, saving us, heavy chokehold air quotes there, and winning the titles and then carrying them forward to SummerSlam. So yeah, that's what I think. And then what Bray does after that, again, that's another difficult position. Maybe he serves the Authority somehow. Maybe he tries to keep Dean Ambrose down. I don't know. It's difficult to say where Bray would go from there.
To me, there are 3 scenarios here.
Okay.
Scenario 1, Cena wins, LOL. And then we get, at Battleground, we get Bryan, Kane, Cena, Wyatt. Cena wins, LOL. And then at SummerSlam, Bryan wins the title back from Cena because the WWE decides, oh, well, we can't do Lesnar Cena now because it was already advertised, even though we didn't want it to be. And then maybe Lesnar comes back to fight Cesaro or something. I don't know. Another option would be, and this is just going along the Cena wins LOL line, at SummerSlam, yeah, he does defend the title against Lesnar. Bryan faces Wyatt without a title on the line. And I don't know where they go from there. Another option, though, to me, is Wyatt wins, successfully defends against Cena at Battleground, and then loses the title to Bryan at SummerSlam. That, to me, like, if Cena's not winning the title, that is the most likely scenario, in my opinion.
It would certainly be terrific for Bryan because he would have gotten his win back from Royal Rumble.
Right, and then on top of that, they could do Cena versus Lesnar just with no title involved.
Exactly. But to get to, let's see, who else do we have to go through? Because you want to go through all these guys. Who do you want to do next?
Well, and I was just going to say, another possible scenario is Reigns wins, Rollins cashes in, and we have a corporate champion again.
See, and I'm glad you say that because Reigns is probably one of the easiest for me because I'll put it to you like this. Regardless of which Shield member, former Shield member, wins the briefcase, I do believe that they'll cash in on Reigns as early as that same night. Because with the way...
And no later than the following Monday, in my opinion.
Exactly. Because the thing is, Reigns is coming in very strong right now, which honestly is the reason why I don't even see him winning to begin with. That said, though, if he does, the reign is going to be one of brevity. Absolutely, it's not going to last.
No more than 24 hours.
No more than 24 hours. And really, what makes it great about Ambrose is that if Reigns thought he couldn't trust anybody before, well, that's going to shatter his trust completely. I could see Ambrose cashing in, and who knows? Maybe Rollins does go into business for himself and still costs Ambrose, and maybe we'd get a triple threat at Battleground. We never did get that Shield triple threat, So what better way to finally have it than for the championship?
Right. I mean, that's another thing. We've been talking about, they're building up Reigns versus Triple H. We don't know that. That's just a rumor.
That is true. That is true. I mean, it is just a rumor, and as I say with all rumors that I like to report or talk about, always take it with a grain of salt. Um, that said, Roman Reigns is probably the most interesting case to me in terms of fantasy booking because, again, if Rollins wins the briefcase, he's definitely cashing in on Reigns, and I'd say he cashes in
That night.
successfully. Yeah,
Yeah.
that night and successfully. If Ambrose wins, he'd either cash in at the pay-per-view or because Ambrose is still a babyface and I don't see his turn being that jarring or quick, seeing as how they just recently did it with Rollins, I could see him saying, hey, Reigns, look, we have a lot of history. You're my friend. You're my brother. But I'm letting you know face to face that I'm cashing in my Money in the Bank contract tonight. And then they build this whole thing up because it's a 3-hour show, so you can give it a lot of build up. We
Right.
get there. Rollins costs him in the end, which Reigns doesn't like because he's a proud man. He doesn't like anybody getting involved in his affairs. And all three of them go at it. We have our triple threat at Battle.
I could see them. Yeah, I was just gonna say I could see them doing the triple threat at Battleground and then Reigns versus Triple H at SummerSlam.
Yeah, because maybe Reigns connects with a spear to Ambrose.
Yep.
Maybe Kane comes out on Triple H's behalf, pulls Reigns out of the ring, and they start scuffling up the ramp. And then Rollins comes out of nowhere and picks the bones because he's the architect.
Right.
So that's the most intelligent design.
I got a question for you, John. Do you kind of feel like the whole Rollins being the architect thing is kind of them trying to turn him into the next what's it called? What did they call Edge? The
ultimate opportunist.
The next ultimate opportunist.
Dude, I've had that in the back of my mind since they first announced that name for him, like on commentary, or he himself called himself that. That's the exact angle I think they're going with, especially now that Triple H is grooming Rollins.
Right.
And he's the cerebral assassin. Yeah, Ambrose. I've been saying Ambrose. Rollins. I think, we're still going to see the fun aerial stuff from Rollins, but expect him to be in these kinds of matches far smarter, far more intelligent with his opponents. I could very easily see him picking the bones off of Roman Reigns' dirty work, and then Roman Reigns realizes, hey, I've got to take care of Triple H. I've got to take care of Rollins' goons before I get him in a one-on-one setting.
Right.
And then you have your fall program, Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. So,
one other option that we haven't talked about is Orton wins the title, and then he faces Reigns at the next pay-per-view, and then Bryan at SummerSlam.
Yeah, that is also, and what would be so quaint about that is that, Randy Orton cashed in on Bryan at last year's SummerSlam. Here he'd have to face him, face to face.
It would come full circle.
Exactly.
Yep.
Which is a shame because with Orton winning, the one match that I've still always wanted to see, and I think both men are still of such ability that I would still love to see it. We still have never seen Orton versus Lesnar, and I would love to see that match one day, but it won't happen if Randy Orton, gets the championship. I completely agree with the road that you've laid out. Bryan is a huge factor in all this whenever he comes back. I could definitely see him back before SummerSlam and reclaiming what is his. This pay-per-view is just fascinating to me because we just did so many different angles for each different guy. And I'd say for the most part, especially everything that you've said is entirely plausible.
Yeah.
So, to me, there are so many avenues this pay-per-view can go. And I just want us to get there, man. I just want to see what unfolds, and I want to enjoy every second of it. This pay-per-view, I think, has a lot of promise, if for nothing else, those two latter matches. So.
Absolutely. All right, dude. We have talked everything to death. I'm ready to close things out. How about you?
Absolutely. So take it away, man.
All right, guys. We have filled you in on what we think about this show. I am actually kind of glad that we saved it all for this because that would have made SmackDown TwitWow way too long. We are super looking forward to the show, especially the two matches that we had the most discussion about, and the one that we had the third most discussion about, that being the tag title match. And you know what? I think that we're going to be able to show our excitement in live reactions, so be sure to stay tuned because live reactions should be out, I'm going to say maybe 25 or 26 hours after this is up. So definitely stay tuned. Keep an eye out for live reactions. And, of course, TwitWow Monday night for the Raw following Money in the Bank. Until then, we will see you guys later.
Peace out, guys.